Yay Networks.
Adults are turning to Pedialyte for off-label uses, including sports drink replacer, muscle cramping remedy, and hangover cure. So just how does this medical grade blend that's designed for kids really measure up? And is it truly something that is worth adding to our lifestyles? I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. We are talking about Pedialyte in this week's episode, and you may be like, why are we talking about Pedialyte? There are a lot of adults who are turning to Pedialyte for reasons far beyond what they're maybe giving it to their kids for. And spoiler alert, I'm not a fan of Pedialyte, and I'll share why. There's actually a bunch of reasons why, but Pedialyte, of course, hit the market, and it's a hydration and rehydration tool for kids. So if your kids are sick, they have diarrhea, they're vomiting, and they're at risk for dehydration, we give them Pedialyte because it helps get them fluids, it helps get them electrolytes. And when you look at, how has Pedialyte become a kind of a pop culture favorite for things like hangover cures, it's not by chance. It's actually been a pretty strategic series of moves by Pedialyte. And I'm going to link to a really great article. It is written by Caitlin Tiffany. And the name of the article, the title of the article is How Pedialyte Got Pedialyte. And she covers the journey from this toddler dehydration remedy to a hangover fix and a post-workout replenisher. And what she looks at and really uncovers is how Pedialyte over the years has very strategically repositioned their product. So yes, they still market it as this remedy for kids. And if you've got kids, again, that are sick and you're looking to prevent dehydration, yes, it's still heavily marketed and branded as such. But they've also really started doing traditional media ad campaigns towards using Pedialyte as a sports drink replacer. And that is probably really the main focus. If you're looking through their ads that are they're popping up, and ads they're using on social media and digital ads that are popping up as you're reading different articles, there's so much about Pedialyte as an effective fluid replenisher post-workout, pre or post-workout. They also, on social media, are using some targeted approaches to insinuate that it is a hangover cure as well. So as you scroll through Pedialyte social, nearly all of their social media posts, first of all, are geared towards adults, not kids. And they're using hashtags like, hashtag not just for babies, and then these subtle references to hangover prevention. So social media posts that might say things like, around the Super Bowl, for example, like, don't let Super Sunday turn into a miserable Monday. Or posts like, it's going to be a good weekend when you purchase Pedialyte ahead of time. So they're not quite as outwardly, visibly promoting Pedialyte as a hangover cure on their social and in their traditional media. But subtly they are. And if you read the article I was telling you about, the How Pedialyte Got Pedialyte, Caitlin Tiffany does a really good job of kind of going through the different strategies that Pedialyte used with social media influencers, real world influencers that would show up at events, at parties, at things like this, and have Pedialyte there and really promoting Pedialyte as that hangover cure. So kind of using some of the guerrilla marketing tactics to really start to infuse Pedialyte as this pop culture type, again, hangover remedy, hangover prevention, hangover cure. So I said earlier that I'm just not a fan of Pedialyte. And the biggest reasons are, I think that they can do better. I think they could have better quality ingredients, just period. With the exception of their organic version, every single type of Pedialyte has 2 different types of artificial sweeteners and also multiple artificial food dyes. So every type, and this is again, these are for children. They're designed for children and these little bodies. And all the varieties of Pedialyte, the regular Pedialyte, the advanced care, the Pedialyte Sport, there's Pedialyte stick packs, there's freezer pops. All of these, with the exception of that one small part of their line that is organic, all of their other products have 2 types of artificial sweeteners. It's sucralose, which is Splenda, and asulfame potassium. We've talked about that before. That is the artificial sweetener that is used in products like Coke Zero. So you may gloss over asulfame potassium thinking, oh, maybe that's a mineral added. Asulfame potassium is an artificial sweetener. Put it in the same category as Equal, Sweet and Low, or Splenda. So artificially sweetened with sucralose and asulfame potassium, so Splenda and asulfame potassium, and they all have those artificial food dyes. So like the Pedialyte freezer pops, for example, they're red 40, blue 1, and or yellow number 6. And really that goes for all of their products. Depends on the color. They may or may not have all 3 of those. But we're looking at something that is just really poor quality ingredients. And so we're looking at basically sugar, some minerals, artificial sweeteners, and artificial food dyes, period. And so I don't love it for that reason. I think number 1, Pedialyte can do better. I mean, clearly they have a huge market. They are making what I would imagine is a huge amount of profit on these products. When we look at them, they are not cheap. A regular bottle of Pedialyte is over $5. The Pedialyte Advanced Care is over $8. So again, not cheap. We can imagine there's a pretty significant profit margin there. And I would love, love, love it if Pedialyte could reformulate and follow the lead of a lot of other products and brands on the market. There's so many now natural plant-based sweeteners that are still 0 calories, 0 added sugar, that could be used in place of sucralose and asulfame potassium. And there's so many ways to color products now with these natural vegetable extracts, these natural fruit extracts that are imparting these vivid colors, but again, without that artificial food dye. So my first request is Pedialyte, do better. There's a lot of other products out there. So when we look at, so that's why I really don't like it. When I look though at the sodium and potassium content, it's really good. I mean, it is really great for those reasons. However, there's a lot of other products that really can be essentially in line from a sodium and potassium standpoint that can be in line with Pedialyte. So when we look at something like Gatorade or Powerade, for starters, I'm not wild about those products either, really for the same reasons we just talked about. They are full of sugar and artificial food dyes, and the ones that are like the zero sugar versions of those, of Gatorade or Powerade, well, they also have the artificial sweeteners, and most of them have the artificial food dyes as well. So not a fan of Gatorade or Powerade, but it is worth noting that ounce for ounce, Pedialyte does have significantly more sodium, which is the main electrolyte we lose in sweat, or when we're dehydrated, it's typically the main electrolyte that we're looking to replenish. So Pedialyte does have significantly more sodium than Gatorade or Powerade. It's also interesting, and Pedialyte's website does a great job of telling us how great it is in that regard also. But they have this side-by-side comparison of Pedialyte and traditional sports drinks, which we can make the assumption are, again, like Powerade, Gatorade. So when we look at Pedialyte compared to those regular Gatorade, Powerade type sports drinks, yes, significantly more sodium. In fact, twice the amount of sodium. And on the flip side, those sports drinks actually have twice the amount of sugar as Pedialyte. So Pedialyte's got that really strong brag point that like, yes, we have twice the electrolyte content, namely sodium, and those other sports drinks have twice the sugar compared to Pedialyte. So they've got some brag points there. However, they aren't addressing the really fake synthetic ingredients that are in there. And when we look at, well, what are the other options that would also give us these electrolytes? And backing up a minute, when we look at electrolytes, sodium is typically the main electrolyte that we're going to be losing in sweat. And again, when we're looking at replenishing electrolytes from dehydration, from whatever the cause, it could be from being sick, from vomiting or diarrhea. It could be dehydration from sweat losses. We are looking at replenishing electrolytes, and again, namely sodium. Second to sodium is potassium. So there are more electrolytes than sodium and potassium. We could look at calcium, magnesium, but sodium and potassium are really the main electrolytes involved in hydration and rehydration. So it is absolutely true. Hats off to Pedialyte that in all of their products, they have a really nice hefty dose of electrolytes, both sodium and potassium. However, the other products that I like better that are also cheaper, so I'm going to share with y'all too the price difference per serving. But there's several different products. One is called Noon. I've talked about that on this podcast before. It's N-U-U-N, and it's these little tablets, sort of like old school Alka-Seltzer tablets, but it's these little tablets. They come in a little tube, and you take that tablet, you put it into your water bottle. They have no artificial sweeteners, no artificial colors. They're sweetened with stevia, and they're colored with those vegetable juice extracts. And each tablet only has 10 calories, 1 gram of sugar, again, nothing artificial. And it's giving us about 300 milligrams of sodium and about 150 milligrams of potassium. So 300 sodium, most of like regular Pedialyte has about 370. So I'll take it. Pedialyte 370, these Noon tablets 300, that's pretty darn close. The potassium's a notch lower, but still, this is a really solid product. Excellent sources of sodium and potassium, and it's much more natural. So again, nothing artificial, no artificial sweeteners, no artificial colors. Also want to talk about price per serving. So the Noon Sport, when I buy it here in New Orleans, the little tube I told you all about, that it's got these little tablets in it, it's about just over $6, $6.25 for 10 little tablets. So it's 10 servings that are used to make like 12 or 16 ounce servings. When we do the math on that, that comes out to about 62 cents per serving. So that 300 milligrams of sodium we were just talking about in a serving, it's about 62 cents per serving. Pedialyte, $1.83 per serving. That's almost 3 times, essentially it is 3 times more. So we're paying 3 times more for Pedialyte than we are for these Noon tablets, which are a really premium product themselves. There's another product similar to Noon, and it's called SOS, and it's not tablets, it's actually little stick packs. And SOS is similar. It's about 350 sodium, so really almost, essentially what Pedialyte has at 370, about 190 potassium, so less than Pedialyte, but still a really good amount. And same deal here, 10 calories. It's sweetened with stevia. It has 0 artificial colors added, no food dyes. And these stick packs, if we saw the sticker price on these, we would think, gosh, these are expensive. It's $15 for a box of these little SOS stick packs of sports drink that we put into our water bottle. But that's $15 for 20 servings, 75 cents a serving. Again, $15 might give someone a little bit of sticker shock, but it's still 75 cents a serving compared to, for regular Pedialyte, $1.83. For that Pedialyte Advanced Care, $2.76 per serving. It's for a 12-ounce serving. $2.76. That's wild. So seeing something like the SOS stick packs, if you're getting them in stores locally or you can order them online, or the Noon Sport, we see those at grocery stores or sporting goods stores all over the place now. $15 for a 20 pack of the SOS, just over $6 for a little 10 serving container of the Noon. We're looking at 62 cents, 75 cents a serving compared to $1.83 to nearly $3 a serving. So when we look at the quality of ingredients, we look at the price point and keep getting this lower price point for something that is way more natural for us. To me, there's not even a question there. When we look at a product like Body Armor Light, that's something that would probably be the closest that we would compare as far as a sports drink that is truly all natural, no artificial sweeteners. It's sweetened with plant-based sweeteners. It has no artificial food dyes. The drawback on Body Armor Light, when we're comparing it in this conversation to Pedialyte, it has a ton of potassium. So like 530 milligrams of potassium in a 12-ounce serving compared to maybe 280 in regular Pedialyte. The drawback, though, is the sodium. It's really low. So Body Armor Light is fantastic if someone's trying to limit their sodium intake. But if someone's like, man, I'm looking for a product that's going to give me these electrolytes that is either the fluid replenishment post-workout, or it is a hangover remedy that we're trying to get, or something for muscle cramping, we actually need that sodium. That sodium is desirable there. So what I would say is if you were going to do something like Body Armor Light, it's going to sound strange, but just try it. See what you think. Take just regular salt and literally a pinch, what's going to fit between your index finger and your thumb, a little pinch of that, put it into that, shake it really well, and let it dissolve in there. And we're simply literally making your own version of a higher sodium concentrate sports drink. And let's be honest, Pedialyte's not tasting super fantastic. And so give it a shot, see if you find it palatable. And again, when we look at price point on this, it's about $6 for an 8 count of Body Armor Light. And we're looking at 0 added sugars. It is only 15 calories a serving. And when we look at the price point, we're looking at about 75 cents for a 12-ounce bottle. So cheaper, better quality ingredients, and we can still get the electrolytes in a variety of different ways. And finally, when we are looking at, okay, what's in here that's desirable? It's the fluid, it's the electrolytes. So it's the liquid, and it's the salt and the potassium. Those are the things that are really desirable that are giving Pedialyte or these other drinks its effectiveness. We can get ample sodium, ample potassium from so many other sources. So we don't have to have something like even a sports drink, certainly not a sugary sports drink, for things like a hangover. There's going to be so many other ways that we can get this. And so even if you do something like a green juice, when we look at something like juiced, freshly pressed greens, spinach actually has a decent amount of naturally occurring sodium. So if you were to do a freshly pressed greens juice, say with a variety of different greens, let's add beets to it if possible. The beet juice, the greens juice, these are alkalizing. These help to neutralize our body's acidity. And after something like a night of drinking, our bodies are really acidic. So even more than the sugary, artificial filled Pedialyte, let's say, what would we do that would be really nutritious for us? Something like a fresh pressed vegetable juice. You could do greens, and you can now buy, you can get it from a juice place. You could juice your own, or you can buy beet juice or beetroot powder. And so if you were somewhere and you're looking at the grocery store and what's there, or like a health food type store, there's brands like Daily Greens or Suja that have really high concentrations of vegetables, greens in there, and not a lot of fruits, not a lot of sugary fruit juices. So if you've got yourself a greens drink and you're not making it yourself, you can either buy beet juice separately and go halvesies, put a little bit in there, maybe a quarter beet juice, the rest of it greens, or you can buy that beetroot powder and add some of that into the greens bottle, shake it up. Because again, the benefit here, we've got natural sodium happening from those greens. And like I said, spinach is something that's surprisingly rich in sodium. It's not something we think about. It's like without adding salt, spinach is naturally pretty salty compared to other types of leafy greens. That beet juice and the greens juice are alkalizing, again, neutralizing our body's acidity, and we're very acidic after a night of drinking. And when we look at that green juice, it's full of compounds that are naturally supporting our body's detoxification process. And that beet juice, we look at beet juice as part of a recovery remedy, a recovery treatment for athletes, but that beet juice actually helps to improve and actually increase blood flow and oxygenation throughout our muscles, throughout our tissues, which helps with muscle recovery post-workout, but it can also just help us feel better all around. So if we're looking at really what can we do that's going to be really good for us, I would toss the Pedialyte. I would do instead something like Noon or the SOS sports drinks. You could try the Body Armor Light, but if you're looking for that extra sodium kick in it, just do that pinch of salt added to it. And then for something that's truly nutrient rich, doing something like greens juice, and ideally greens that are blended with beet juice. Now, nothing we've talked about so far has caffeine in it. The Pedialyte doesn't. A few of the different Noon varieties do have caffeine in them, but most of them don't. So most of what we've talked about has just been fluids and electrolytes, but adding a little bit of caffeine. Now I'm on the hangover conversation here. So adding a little bit of caffeine can help to ease, or at least slightly ease, things like headaches and some other symptoms of hangover. So green tea is a very mild, neutral source of caffeine. So it's not going to leave you feeling jittery or irritable, or you already don't feel great, and now we're throwing caffeine on top of that, kind of a hefty dose of caffeine. It can be sort of like an easy, light way to add that caffeine, but that caffeine might also help to improve symptoms, including things like headaches. And I'm going to throw one more thing in there, and you're going to be like, Molly, I would rather drink Pedialyte than do this. But one thing that I would say morning after, still talking hangovers, is apple cider vinegar. And you're going to be like, I already feel horrible, and now you're going to make me drink a shot of apple cider vinegar. So we always want to dilute it. So do like an ounce or two of apple cider vinegar diluted with about 6 ounces of water. It can be chilled or it can be warm. I prefer warm. But apple cider vinegar has a natural diuretic. And so if you do feel bloated, you've got all this fluid retention from that night of drinking, it can help with that. It can also help to stabilize blood sugar. So when we look at what's the science behind apple cider vinegar, one of the things that we see consistently is that including apple or adding in apple cider vinegar, let's say before a meal, helps to enhance blood sugar control. So more stable blood sugar levels, more stable insulin levels after that meal. So taking something like apple cider vinegar in the morning can help to stabilize those blood sugar levels. And part of the reason that someone might kind of feel weak or shaky after a night of drinking is really unsteady, unstable blood sugar levels. So doing something like apple cider vinegar can help with that. And it can also be that natural diuretic. So again, you don't do it straight. 1 ounce or 2 ounces diluted with about 6 ounces of water would be what you would do. You could, instead of putting that apple cider vinegar into water, you could do an ounce or two of that, put it into the green juice we talked about earlier, and just pound all that back at once. So you could do something that would be a blend of greens juice with some beetroot extract added in there, powder that you could just keep on hand in the pantry. Or if you had something like beet juice that you can buy at a lot of different grocery stores now. But beetroot powder, easy. Keep that in the pantry. Get you a few different bottles of freshly pressed or kind of greens juices, looking for those that are more vegetable than fruit. So you've got your greens juice, you could add your beetroot powder, and you could add your ounce or two of apple cider vinegar to that. Shake it all up. It's not something you're going to love, but I can promise you it is going to do your body a lot of good. It's going to do your body a lot more good and give you the fluids, give you some sodium, give you some potassium, and way more nutritional benefit than what Pedialyte is, without all the less than desirable add-ins that Pedialyte has. So I know that's probably not what a lot of people want to hear. Like, hey, I just want to grab Pedialyte. It's easy. I can just keep it on hand. Like the social media post said, it's going to be a good weekend if you purchase Pedialyte ahead of time. And I'm like, don't purchase Pedialyte. Get yourself some greens juice and beetroot powder and apple cider vinegar. But that's what I would do. So, and of course, when we're talking about the best way to prevent a hangover, of course, is moderate drinking in the first place. But it's a lot easier to say that before. And we may start out with the best intentions and then things get away from us. But we do need to say, of course, the best way and the only proven way to truly avoid that hangover is to avoid over drinking in the first place. But if you do push things too far, that would be the remedy that I would recommend over Pedialyte. And then again, those Noon tablets, the SOS packets, can be really incredible and much more natural alternatives to Pedialyte. So if you have opinions on this, if you love Pedialyte, if you've tried it, if you don't like it, if you found other alternatives that work for you, whether we're talking hangover or we are talking fluid replenisher, what you love before or after a workout, or if there's things that you have as your muscle cramping remedies, I want to hear about it. So much of what I learn and what I get tuned into of what can be effective starts with what I am hearing from you guys. So share with me your experiences. I always love to hear it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.